Hello, everyone. The following story is much longer and more detailed than the ones I've written previously. It is about a group of semi-orphan children tasked with protecting their island refuge from the outside world while battling the evil that is forced to crawl from within it. Please enjoy it. And if you enjoy these stories, please like the video, leave a nice comment, and subscribe for more in the future. Let us begin without further delay. The Genesis Guardians, Ground Zero, Prologue. Tyra, Xavier began tentatively, observing his sister's intense focus on her computer screen. I'm uncertain if this is wise. Exhaling with frustration, Tyra remained silent, prompting Xavier to press further. It's been ages since we've been off this island. The younger ones are afraid, as are some of the others. We can't just uproot everything and leave. Yes, we can, Tyra declared, abruptly closing her laptop and meeting Xavier's gaze. She quickly apologized for raising her voice, acknowledging her abruptness. We're not confined here anymore. We can venture out and reconnect with the world beyond. Do you realize how long I've waited for this? I never imagined Diane would have the chance to see the places we've dreamed of, and now we can. I won't allow you or anyone else to hold me back, Zay. Xavier swallowed hard, recognizing Tyra's determination. Despite his inner conflict, he knew she was right. Yet, the fear of the unknown lingered, especially regarding the Genesis people. Sensing his hesitation, Tyra gently rubbed his nose. This isn't just for us, Xavier. It's for the people, too. When Father confined us all those years ago, there were gens outside, lost and in need of guidance. We were meant to protect and lead them. Who knows what they're enduring now? We can't wait any longer. We need to leave this island and help them. As Tyra's voice wavered with guilt, Xavier stiffened. But can't we wait a bit longer? Just another year or a little while more? We've waited too long already, Tyra insisted. 6 months was enough. Starting next week, we're leaving. Some will follow us, maybe a couple of thousand, but we have to go. Introducing the Genesis to the outside world will benefit future generations. And those Gijinkas scattered across the globe all those years ago, they belong with us. Their abilities should be celebrated, not exploited. I won't abandon them. Xavier paused, struck by the depth of Tyra's reflections. You've thought a lot about what happened to us, haven't you? Chapter 1, All We Have. June 2nd, 2006, 7 p.m., Beatrice held Diane in her arms. The little girl had been crying for so long. The angels had just hobbled their way back to the manor in a clumped group holding one another after the attack. Tyra was in such a state of shock. It was as if she had mentally blacked out, all while her body kept moving. Once back at home, they all fell around the living, succumbing to the pain of their wounds. It was a sight out of a tragic war movie. Soldiers coming back from war in pieces and shambles. But instead of men and women, it was boys and girls, children, all beaten beyond anything of comprehension, but all thankfully alive and well. Some collapsed on the furniture, no longer caring about the blood seeping from the cracks of the wounds. Others on the floor, their legs tired from walking so far. Tyra shut and locked the door, finally snapping back to reality. She looked around as her family were sobbing and crying in pain, tending to one another. What had happened? Why today? What went wrong? Was all she could think about. She was in such shock and mental lapse, she didn't even feel the scar on her back, a puncture wound on her backside that even tore a hole in her flesh, connecting to the front in her side. Beatrice wobbled over to Tyra, looking as if she was on the brink of a mental breakdown. She handed the eldest child the youngest one who hasn't stopped crying. all the others as well. Tyra felt her hand shaking as she saw the baby heavily scared. Tyra turned Diane and held her to her chest, rocking back and forth. Beatrice sat close to Tyra, whipping tears from her face before they could run down her cheeks. She reached her hand out to Tyra and Diane. A stigmata was on her palm. She focused and concentrated and placed her hand to Diane's poor back and transferred as much healing magic and energy as she could to the baby. Diane slowly stopped crying and went to little meek sobs as the pain started to go away and her small body was filled with adrenaline. The blonde would have kept going, but Bee's nose started to bleed, so Tyra urged her to stop. "Shh, she'll be fine." "Okay," Tyra said, grabbing her hand gently. Tyra then looked at Diane before standing up with her, gently and carefully wrapping the blood-soaked blanket in the manner of a baby carrying a swaddle. Lana was holding Aiden in her arms as he was unconscious and squirming in pain. Seeing Tyra, the little girl asked, "What do we do now?" As Lana asked, all the siblings that remained conscious looked towards Tyra. What were they to do now? Tyra was the eldest sister, and now that father had locked the entire island away from the outside world, she was the only sibling old enough to depend on. They were just kids, but surely Tyra had all the answers. Mother is gone now, probably dead. Tyra looked to all them her breaths till hitched as she had blood dripping down her forehead. What was she to say? What was she to do? She was just a child. She wasn't as strong as Patience or Hiroko. This was a nightmare come true. Tyra looked at them all, rubbing Diane's head and wiping her face. She opened her mouth, and at first there was silence, but then she spoke up. "We need to survive," she said firmly. Angela held Caboochin close, and together they and some other siblings moved closer. Tyra could tell they were really looking to her for help and answers, so she could do nothing but be honest with them. Father is not who he appears to be. We can't trust him right now. We need to help each other, heal each other." She adjusted the baby once more. "We need to clean up the blood and make sure we don't die. I need to put Diane to sleep." Her thoughts were unfocused. Usually Tyra was a very smart child, but words and logic failed her. Emotions took the wheel now. I promise, I'm not going to let anything happen to you guys or the others." Giggles and Blade and Scotch and Crystal that they did everything they could for us. "I'm going to protect all of you, just lie they did, okay?" After that, she started walking towards the staircase, her small hand reaching to grab the railing for extra protection. Her siblings did nothing but watch in silence, finding meaning in her words. It filled them with hope, enough hope to get them through the night. Tyra walked up a single step before inhaling once more and turning around. "I mean it. I love you guys, and we're going to get through this, okay? We're all that we have." 1 year later, it was a warm spring day. Viper and Lillian were climbing high up on the trees. Due to the divine nature of the young children who inhabited this place, the forest grew in abundance, surrounding their nice, lovely manor. The sisters were trying to get a good feel of their climbing abilities. Lillian was wearing a nice little spring overall set. Viper was wearing a nice jumpsuit. Viper had a strong grip on the tree, so she would snag herself on a branch and then ensure that Lily would be able to climb closer. The types of trees that grew on the island were strange, unlike anything other continents had. The trees near the manor weren't too big, just a couple yards tall. Lily and Vi had only climbed a teenage spruce. The height reached a bit under a story, but they were still good and safe. Once at the top of the tree, they wrapped a single around each other and the tree and stared off into the distance. They could see much, but they could see all around the forest, seeing creatures being smuggled into tree holes and nooks, birds chirping and singing, the flowers quickly blooming and growing. Viper smiled, taking it all in. Lillian pressed her cheek against the rough bark, feeling the energy and growing life that was blooming within the tree. Suddenly, as the Viper moved to adjust her footing, her shoe slid against some slippery tree moss, and she lost her footing and balance. She was starting to fall backwards. Lillian quickly noticed her sister's grip fall from hers, and her eyes turned to see her. Her reflexes were rather sharp, as are many of the guardians, so she could see her sibling falling in what one could only assume was slow motion. Acting quicking, she shifted her body to grab the tree with her opposite hand and reached the other hand out to catch her sister. Viper was falling just a bit out of reach, however, and Lily could very well see that. Suddenly, her small wrist slid itself open, and the nerves and veins in her arm shot out. Upon entering the air and no longer being held in her skin, the blood anatomical essentials turned into botanical tendrils, only as thin as a jump rope. They wrapped around Viper's waist and caught her, though she didn't slam against the trunk of the tree and some small branches as a result. But after rubbing her head and getting some good footing once more, she gave her sister a sweet smile. Lily slowly and softly knelt down, feeling her exposed nerves and veins expand and bloom into something vine-like. It was like a hot iron was pressed into her appendage wound. Viper's small nails turned to sharp claws, and she started to get a good grip on the tree. "Pull your vines back, or you could faint, Lily," she said as she began to climb. Are you all right? I didn't pull too hard, did I?" Her vines withdrew, sucking back into her skin and turning back into red ropes of life, though the tip tendrils curled around the cut to make some sort of leafy bandage to wait for the healing to start. I'm fine, Lil. I'm okay, really." Viper clung to a branch just under her sister, trying to catch her breath, but was still overall excited. "But that was a really good catch." "I have been practicing, but please don't try to fall again." She reached down to awkwardly hoist her sister up to where she stood, and they slowly shifted to sit on the brawn carefully. "Think we should head back home now?" "Yeah. Ty said we could only be out for a few hours today while she went into the city, and I think I've got all the climbing out of my system today." The dead came in all age groups, including infants and children. Tonight was not an exception to this. Being overexposed to crime scenes and deaths of many made them unaffected by their sights. The girl was found afraid and shaken by the tragic event that led her to this point. "No one is going to hurt you here anymore," her calm, emotionless voice would tell the ghost girl. There was no warmth to her, at least not in this moment. But it's that this calmness is what calmed and soothed these ripe souls in the first place. She had a certain radiance no one could describe, and it hummed to those who listened. The maturity in her voice and her maternal sense in their will gave out a sense of safety to the young and animal lives. The black, shapely figure of Kabu's aura still spooked her. She already knew all about the tales of the angel-born Grim Reapers. No, I don't want to go," the child cried. "Where would you like to go then?" Kabu asked the girl patiently. She reached into her pocket to fetch a tissue and wiped the little girl's face. "I want to see Mama and Papa again." The little girl answered through sniffles, calming down to the other girl's voice and touch and seeing their more human features now. "They're waiting for you behind those doors." Caboose smiled softly in all honesty. How many laps around the table have they run by now? Raya has lost the count, but however many there were, it was enough to make the freckled girl lay down, defeated and breathless, on the wooden floor with her sister saddled on their upper back. Dragon Witch defeated. The toddler screamed in victory. Raya has faced many apparitions in the past that have challenged her athleticism and body limits, from running from cops to catch feral monsters herself, racing down a rake down the E6 route, to hunt down a speed demon that haunted the metro station, to the masked maniac chasing Raya down with a chainsaw on a Segway in creepy fields and being chased by a water bomber somewhere in the rural South. None of the above came close to the bottomless pit of energy coming from a small toddler that has finally put their body to a true test. Raya doesn't remember when she got this exhausted from simply running. She was just chasing her screaming and giggling sister around the table in a playful chase. Damn it. She has done much more physically challenging outtakes on certainly bigger foes. But it has certainly made Raya finally realize her body still had some growing to do if she were to be stronger. Raya wasn't sure whether to find comfort or dread in that. She closed her eyes, held her breath, and let her thoughts wander elsewhere. "Rai-Ra," chirped Jessa in her small voice. She looked down from where she sat. Her chubby legs were knotted around Raya's neck like a pretzel. She used her small hand to brush away some of Jiraiya's hair to look at her face. She looked concerned. It seemed like, on top of Raya's ghastly gaunt face, their skill to remain still and look dead was convincing enough. "Roar, mine," Raya growled loudly. That's when they suddenly sprang up from the dead, grabbed Jessa in their arms, in their surprisingly strong grip, and playfully chewed her on the shoulder, and then proceeded to do that throughout her arm. All while Jessa did was squeal and giggle loudly. Still raw to the roasting pit, Raya stood up on their feet, with Jessa still in their grasp. She began to toss and spin Jessa in the air, and Jessa's laughter only increased in volume. Raya would do so until she started to feel soreness in her left shoulder, right where she was shot last night by a rogue gunman. "All right, sweetie, big sis getting tired." "Oh," Jessa pouted, giving Raya her sad puppy eyes. "Look, sweetie, it's 6 o'clock, which means barn TV," she quipped, and pumped her fist in the air, almost punched Raya in the face as she did. "Woo." "Yes, sweetie, you sit here and I'll make you cocoa, all right." Raya placed her on the couch and kisses her on the forehead. "Thanks, Raya," Jessa smiled, to which Raya silently nodded and disappeared into the kitchen to prepare her drink. The theme for the children program on NRK was blaring faintly in the distance, with Jessa's eyes glued to the TV while she hugged Mr. Rex. "Uppies," a small voice would blabble coming from the small brunette, with her grabby hands up towards Tyra. Ty was tired from an exhausting night at patrol, but she picked her up nevertheless. As she picked her up, Diane would then proceed to put her arms around Tyra's head and hug her big sister. Tyra blinked, and for a moment dumbfounded, which followed a prolonged pause. Affection like this was something she rarely got, and the overwhelming warmth that suddenly filled their chest felt odd, but not in a bad way, just not something she was used to. She nuzzled into her hug and the two stayed embraced like that for a while as the sun was setting through the window pane to their left. Tyra could feel herself about to cry. She and her siblings were fighting so hard now, and for what? They were just kids, getting shot at, beat up, killing people. The idea and imagery of it all made Tyra's heart sink. She didn't want this for Diane. She wouldn't allow this. Right then and there, Tyra made up her mind. Diane wasn't going to be like them. She wasn't going to be trained to talk combat. She was going to live a normal life. No danger or worrying about her safety. No shattered bones by the age of 5. No bleeding noses when she turned 13. No. Tyra decided her father's long line of soldiers ended